Hi there, I'm Frank Gerard, and I am an audiobook narrator and host of this classic country episode with one of my favorite authors in the world, Diane Diekman. Diane has wrote many books, including Live Fast, Love Hard, the FaronYoung story, available, by the way, in both hard copy and paperback. I don't know if this is coming in backwards when you're viewing it, folks. It may. And it's also on audiobook. And I'm honored to have been the audiobook narrator for the book on Faron, which I read long before I did the audiobook because I just loved this book about a man who I believe is one of the was before Diane's book was one of the most forgotten country singers who was so popular in the 50s and 60s. I mean, unbelievably popular. You kids would not believe it. It was true. He was so popular. And Diane has kind of brought back life to him. I mean, so to speak, interest in him. And I'm honored to have with me today the author, who, by the way, Diane just finished for a second. I got to say, Diane has just also finished a book about Randy Travis, which we'll give you info on that at the end. Diane, welcome.
Well, welcome. Thank you for inviting me here, Frank. I remember when you first contacted me about doing the audiobook, and I'd been thinking of that for a long time and didn't know how to go about it and spending the money. And you said your wife had told you, well, you should check because you assumed I'd already done that. I said, I would love to have you do the audiobook.
Yeah. It was just a joy for me because I've done many, many audiobooks. Most of them are about topics that are just okay to me. An audiobook narrator does not have to love or even like the topic that he's narrating, but the fact that I was doing this book that about a singer that I loved, and learning more about his life as I read it was just like, going to Disneyland every day, and it was wonderful. So thank you. And I want to ask you this question because this amazed me the first time I read your book, and I think it's just such a cool thing. You actually met Faron Young, correct?
Yes, I did. I saw him about 13 times I counted up over the years. It started when I was in college in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. I went to the concert at the Coliseum downtown and I hung around afterwards and got the autographs from the band members and such. And I was planning to walk back to my college dorm that night. And Faron or one of the band members mentioned it, and Faron would not let me walk back. So they put me on his tour bus and took me back to the college. And there was a circular driveway going up to my dorm. And the bus pulls into this circular driveway, which it obviously couldn't drive around the whole thing. And then they shine the spotlight on the dorm. So I get off the bus and I have no idea how many of the girls are looking out of the windows at what is this spotlight shining. But that was my first meeting. So then I went to a concert several years after that. After I joined the Navy, whenever he was in the vicinity where I would be stationed, I would go to his shows and I would stand in front of the stage with the other people and I'd introduce myself and it got so he knew who I was after I reminded him about the ride to the dorm in the bus
Yeah.
and then he would recognize me and by that time I was a commissioned officer. He'd see me standing in the audience and he would salute.
I
And
love it.
he was always proud of me being a military officer, so he paid attention as I got promoted to my next ranks. And when I went to Japan in August of '96, I had called him before I left, and I told him that I was going to Japan. I said I wanted to stay where I was. I told my bosses that I I liked where I was and I'd like to have two assignments in a row, but if the Navy was going to promote me to captain and send me to Japan, I'd go where the Navy wanted me. And Faron, who had been in the Army many years ago, he says, well, isn't that just like the military? You tell them you like what you're doing, you tell them you want to stay where you are, and they ship your ass to Japan.
I love it.
So I went to Japan, and then one night in December, I had the
1990, this is 1996, correct?
96,
Okay. Sad
96.
year, sad year.
I I had the Armed Forces TV channel on, and it announced that country singer FaronYoung had shot himself and wasn't expected to live. And it was such a shock. So I called his house, knowing, not expecting anyone to answer. And of course they didn't. So I left a message for him and said, I hoped he'd be
Yeah.
okay. And I waited for news to hear anything about him, but there wasn't much news over in Japan, and all the news was about the O.J. Simpson trial at the time.
Oh,
And
yeah.
then finally, I saw a little article in the Armed Forces newspaper that said he had died.
Hmm.
And then in the remaining time that I was in Japan, uh, well, that's when I started thinking about writing his biography because I didn't want him to be forgotten.
Yeah. That's great. And so what year did you start writing the biography or start preparing to write it?
In 1999. That was the
Okay.
year that I transferred to Los Angeles. I had written a couple letters and things, and so during that 3 year period, I had started thinking about it, and I thought, I had grown up loving country music, listened to it all my life, and I thought, how neat would it be to be able to contact all these country music singers who I had grown up listening to and talk to them about Faron. And
Yeah.
everybody who knew FaronYoung had stories to tell about him. So I decided that was what I wanted to do. So when I transferred to Los Angeles, then one of I hadn't been there too long, and one weekend I just bought a plane ticket and went to Nashville. I didn't know what to expect or who I would talk to, but I got a hotel room, and I ended up talking to Ralph Emery, who was a big help in doing this,
Yeah.
and to Billy Deaton, to who was Faron's manager all those years. And then I went to the Music City News uh, office, and
Which
that was
Faron used to own,
and
correct?
Faron had established that magazine.
Right.
Yes. So I went there and I talked to those people. So my first weekend, not knowing what would happen or what I would do, I ended up with three major contacts. So that's what got me started in the fall of '99.
That's terrific. And if you're watching this, we have likely posted this somewhere where it is going to be viewed by people who are interested in classic country music or good history or good music, period, or you're already a big fan of Faron. We'll be posting more of these in the time as the days go along because we just love talking about Faron. In the
We do.
meantime, I'd like to tell you that again, you can buy the book Live Live Fast, Love Hard, The FaronYoung Story by Diane Diekman in, again, hardbound, paperback, or audiobook, which I narrated. And you can get any of those at Amazon.com, right, Diane?
Yes, it should be. I'm
Yeah.
not sure if the hardcovers, if there's many of those around anymore,
Okay.
but
Yeah.
the soft cover is most definitely in print,
Yeah.
and so is your version.
Audiobook's pretty good, I have to say, because the narrator loves the topic, and you can get them there. You can also go to Diane's website at dianediekman.com. That's DIEKMAN.com. Diane's written tons of books. Again, she just finished one on Randy Travis. We'll talk about those in future episodes. And thank you so much. You can also put comments. If you're reading this on social media, feel free to put comments. We'll be checking them, and we'll be seeing you again real soon. Diane, thank you so much.
Well, thank you. I enjoyed the conversation.
Thank you. Take care.